Throwaway, BC, my friends are always on here, and I really don't want this getting back to me right now. So I, female, 32, have been feeling like I'm going completely insane for the past few weeks, and I honestly don't know if I'm overreacting or if my gut is right about this. My 3 best friends started this relationship advice podcast called Girl Talk Therapy about 6 months ago, and I've been their biggest cheerleader since day one. Like, I work in digital marketing, so I helped them figure out their whole social media strategy. I share every single episode on my stories. I'm constantly telling people to check them out. Basically, I've been doing free marketing work because I wanted to see them succeed, you know. But here's where it gets weird, and I swear I'm not making this up. I lost a pregnancy about 3 months ago. It was really hard. I'm not going to get into all the details here, but I told my friends everything, including this stupid thing where I kept calling it my ghost baby, because that's just how it felt to me, like this presence that was there and then wasn't. I know it sounds dumb, but that phrase just stuck in my head, and I used it a lot when I was talking to them about how I was processing everything. So last Tuesday, I'm doing my weekly grocery run and listening to their latest episode like I always do. I'm in the produce section, picking out avocados when I hear them reading this anonymous listener question about someone dealing with pregnancy loss. And the person in the question uses the exact phrase, ghost baby. I literally stopped in the middle of the store. Like, I know this sounds paranoid, but it wasn't just the phrase. The whole situation they described was really similar to mine. The timing, the circumstances, even some of the specific emotions the anonymous listener mentioned. I had to go sit in my car for like 10 minutes because I felt so sick. I kept telling myself it was just a coincidence. People go through similar stuff all the time, right? Maybe ghost baby isn't as unique as I thought. Maybe I was just being self-centered and seeing myself in everything. But the more I replayed it in my head, the more details matched up perfectly. That night, I called my friend Sarah. Let's call her that. She's like the main host of the podcast. I tried to be casual about it, asking if she listened to that day's episode. She was all confused about why I was asking, so I mentioned the ghost baby thing and some of the other details. She immediately got defensive and told me that lots of people use that phrase and that I can't claim ownership over common experiences. But here's the thing. I've literally never heard anyone else use that phrase. Ever. And when I tried to explain why it felt so specific to my situation, she just kept interrupting me, telling me I was reading way too much into it and that it was concerning. I think everything is about me. The next day, our group chat started blowing up about how well that episode performed. My friend Jessica was going on about how whoever sent in that question really needed help and how proud she was that they could provide support. So I said something like that it sounded exactly like my situation. Immediately, Jessica flipped it around on me, started telling me I was being paranoid and self-centered, and that I needed to stop making everything about myself. My third friend Amy just said nothing, which honestly hurt almost as much because she looked super uncomfortable but didn't stick up for me at all. The whole thing ended with me feeling like I was losing my mind, like maybe I was being crazy and possessive over something that wasn't even mine to begin with. Since then, I've just pulled back. I stopped downloading their episodes. When they ask for feedback in our group chat, I just say, I'm swamped with work stuff. Sarah called me directly last week, pushing for my thoughts on their latest episode, and I gave her some vague positive comments without actually listening. I know I'm being weird and passive-aggressive, but I just can't bring myself to listen right now. I keep going back and forth between thinking I'm completely overreacting and feeling like my friends use something really personal and painful without even asking. Like, maybe it really was just a coincidence and I'm being a terrible friend by pulling away. But also, that phrase was so specific to how I was dealing with everything, and now every time I think about it, I just feel sick. I've always been the one who promotes their stuff, shares their episodes, gives them feedback, helps them figure out social media strategy. Basically, I've been doing free marketing work because I wanted to support them, and now I just don't want to anymore. I feel guilty about it because I know they count on my support, but I also feel like maybe they don't actually care about me as much as I thought they did. I don't know. Maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe this is what grief does to your brain and makes you paranoid about stuff that isn't even real. But I can't shake this feeling that they took something really private and turned it into content without even telling me. Am I the idiot for pulling back from supporting their podcast over what might just be a coincidence? Edit. Since so many people are asking, no, I haven't directly confronted them about using my story yet. I know I should probably just ask them straight up, but honestly, the way Sarah reacted when I even brought up the similarities made me feel like I was going crazy. Like she was so quick to make me feel like I was being possessive and self-centered that I started second-guessing everything. To those saying I should listen to more episodes to see if there are other similarities, I've thought about that, but I literally can't bring myself to download them right now. The idea of hearing more of my private conversations turned into anonymous listener questions makes me feel physically sick. Maybe that's dramatic, but that's where I'm at. For everyone asking about the ghost baby phrase, I'm pretty sure I made it up. Like I've never heard anyone else say it, and when I mentioned it to my therapist, she said it was a really unique way to describe the experience. That's part of why hearing it on their podcast felt so jarring. And yes, I realize I'm probably being a terrible friend by going quiet instead of just talking to them about it. That's kind of my thing though. When I feel hurt or betrayed, I just withdraw instead of confronting people directly. I know it's not healthy, but it's what I do. Now for the first update, I honestly don't even know where to start with what happened today. I found out so much more about the podcast situation, so I'm working from home today, just trying to get through my afternoon deadlines when my phone rings with this random number. I almost didn't answer, but I don't know, something made me pick up. It's this guy who says he's a landlord and he's calling because my friend Sarah gave him my number as like an emergency contact for possible payment help. I'm immediately confused because Sarah has never mentioned any money issues to me, like ever. If anything, she's always talking about her fancy studio apartment and how much she loves the neighborhood, which I know is expensive as hell. The landlord starts explaining that she's 3 months behind on rent and apparently told him I might be able to help with the back payments. I'm sitting there like, what the actual fuck? 3 months behind. And she gave out my number without even asking me. I mean, I've always been the one who helps people out financially, but this felt so presumptuous. Like, who does that? The landlord seemed really uncomfortable about the whole thing, too. He kept apologizing for calling me and said he normally wouldn't, but Sarah had been very insistent that I would want to know and would probably help, which made me feel even weirder about it because when did we have that conversation? Never. That's when. I hung up and immediately called Sarah. Like my hands were literally shaking because I was so confused and honestly kind of pissed that she dragged me into her financial problems without even telling me there were financial problems. At first, she tried to play it off like it was some kind of mistake or misunderstanding. She was all, oh, he probably got confused and I never said you'd pay my rent, but I could tell she was lying. When I mentioned specific things the landlord had said, she just broke down crying. And that's when she told me the truth. All three of them, Sarah, Jessica, and Amy, lost their jobs 6 months ago. The same week, they started the podcast. They've been lying to me this entire time about being freelancers and taking a break from corporate life, when actually they all got laid off from the same marketing company after some project went really badly. I kept thinking back to 6 months ago, when they suddenly got really excited about going freelance. I work in marketing too, but they're in a different specialty area, and I'd been so swamped with my own client deadlines that I never really questioned their career change. Now I realize they were always vague whenever I asked about their freelance work. Sarah told me they were too embarrassed to admit they got fired, so they've been telling people they were laid off, or that they decided to pursue other opportunities. But here's the part that really got me. Sarah said they started the podcast because they were hoping to make money fast enough to avoid losing their apartments. Like this wasn't just a fun creative project for them, it was a desperate attempt to pay rent. She said she'd managed to scrape together rent for the first few months after they lost their jobs using savings and credit cards, but everything fell apart around the time of around 3 months ago when I was dealing with my own stuff. That's when she stopped being able to make payments, and they needed good emotional content to grow their audience quickly enough to actually matter financially. I mean, I know this sounds terrible, but suddenly the whole Ghost Baby episode made so much more sense. They weren't just stealing my story for content. They were stealing it because they needed content that would get people engaged so they could monetize their audience faster. I'm still processing all of this because I feel like such an idiot. I've been promoting their podcast everywhere, sharing every episode, telling everyone I know to listen, basically doing free marketing work to help them make money while they were lying to my face about why they needed that money in the first place. Within like an hour of getting off the phone with Sarah, both Jessica and Amy called me separately. They both tried to make me feel guilty about not understanding what it's like to face homelessness and how they'd been counting on my continued social media support. Jessica literally said, "I thought you cared about us." When I mentioned that I felt hurt, they'd been lying for months. Amy was more subtle, but she kept saying things like, "I guess I know where I stand with you, and I didn't realize our friendship was so conditional." The thing is, I do care about them. I care so much that I've been pouring hours of free work into promoting their podcast. I care so much that apparently I'm the person they give to landlords as someone who might pay their rent. I care so much that I'm sitting here feeling guilty for being upset that they lied to me instead of being mad that they used my miscarriage story to make money. Amy also told me, and made me promise not to tell the others, that she's been living with her parents for the past 2 months because she couldn't afford her own place anymore. She said she's been meeting them at coffee shops instead of hosting at her apartment because she was too embarrassed to admit she had to move back home. I don't know what to think anymore. Like, on one hand, I'm really upset that they've been lying to me and using my personal trauma for content. But on the other hand, they're literally facing eviction, and I've been over here feeling sorry for myself about a podcast episode. I keep going back and forth between feeling like the most selfish person alive and feeling like they manipulated me. Maybe both things can be true. I don't know. The worst part is that I can actually afford to help them. Like, I inherited some money from my grandmother last year, and I've been sitting on most of it because I didn't know what to do with it. Part of me wants to just write Sarah a check for the back rent and call it even. But another part of me feels like that would just be enabling whatever this pattern is. I haven't listened to any more of their episodes because, honestly, I'm scared of what else I might recognize. What if they've been using other conversations we've had? What if that anonymous listener with the pregnancy loss wasn't the only time? I feel like I'm going crazy because I can't tell if I'm being reasonable or if I'm just being a terrible friend who's abandoning people when they need help the most. Edit 1. A lot of people are asking if I've checked their recent episodes for more of my stories. I've thought about it, but honestly, I can't bring myself to listen right now. The idea of hearing more of my private conversations turned into content makes me feel sick, especially knowing they were doing it out of financial desperation. Edit 2. To those saying I should just pay Sarah's rent, I'm really torn on this. Yes, I can afford it, but I also feel like if I bail her out now without addressing the lying and the podcast thing, nothing will actually change. She'll just know she can give out my number to creditors, and I'll handle it. Edit 3. For everyone asking about the other friends' financial situations, Amy is living with her parents but lying about it, and I don't know Jessica's exact situation, but based on how quickly she called to guilt trip me, I'm guessing it's not good. Edit 4. I realize I keep flip-flopping between being mad and feeling guilty. That's kind of my thing, though. I always end up feeling bad for people, even when they hurt me. I don't know why I do this, but I think it's because growing up I learned that being helpful was the only way to keep people around. Edit 5. Before anyone asks, no, I haven't decided what I'm going to do about the money situation yet. Part of me wants to help because they're my friends and they're struggling. But part of me also feels like they've been using me this whole time, and I need to figure out where the boundary is between being supportive and being a pushover. Now for the second update. Wow, I honestly wasn't expecting so many people to respond to my last post. Some of you were pretty harsh about the friendship thing, but I get it. A lot of you told me to just ask them directly instead of assuming the worst, and you're probably right that I should have done that first. But something happened yesterday that changes everything, and I don't even know where to start. It's been 3 days since I found out about the lies and the money situation, and after reading all your comments, I felt like such a terrible friend. Like, here are 3 people I care about facing eviction, and I'm sitting here obsessing over a podcast episode that might not even be about me. I kept thinking about what some of you said about how desperate people do desperate things, and maybe I was being selfish, focusing on my hurt feelings when they literally might lose their homes. So, around midnight, I just decided, fuck it. I'm writing her a check from my inheritance money. I mean, that's what the money is for, right? Helping people I care about when they need it. I know some of you are probably thinking I'm an idiot for this, but whatever. I've always been the type of person who helps first and asks questions later. I wrote out a check for 3 months' rent, plus a little extra for groceries or whatever. I figured I'd just drop it off at Sarah's apartment Thursday morning before work and avoid the whole awkward conversation about why she gave my number to her landlord without asking. Thursday morning, I'm standing outside her building with this envelope, and I'm honestly feeling pretty good about myself, like finally doing something helpful instead of just wallowing in my own hurt feelings, you know? I was planning to just slip it under her door with a note or something cheesy like that, but as I'm walking up to her door, I hear Sarah's voice through the wall. Her building is one of those old converted houses where the walls are super thin and she's talking really loudly on the phone. At first, I figured I should just leave the envelope and go, but then I heard her say my actual first name. I know this sounds terrible, but I just froze there in the hallway listening. Before anyone jumps on me for eavesdropping, I was literally just trying to help her, and she was talking loud enough that I couldn't not hear it. She was talking to someone about keeping me calm until some live show this weekend and how they needed to handle things for just a few more days. I'm standing there like, what live show? They've never mentioned a live show to me. Then I hear Jessica's voice in the background. She must have been on speaker, talking about ticket sales and how they've already sold over 200 tickets because they advertised a surprise guest confrontation. My hands started shaking because what the fuck does that mean? I'm standing in this narrow hallway holding a rent check for someone who's apparently planning some kind of confrontation with me that they're selling tickets to. Sarah starts laughing and talks about how the networks are eating this up. They love the drama angle. She's been feeding them details about my personal stuff to make the bidding war bigger. Then, Jessica mentions she's already finished designing the graphics with my real name and photo for what she calls a special episode about friendship and betrayal. I think I stopped breathing for a minute. Like they've been planning to ambush me publicly, using my real name and photo, and they're making money off of it. Amy's voice chimes in, quieter, she sounded uncomfortable, saying she already told them she doesn't feel good about this, but Sarah just talks over her about how I'll understand once it's over, and they're all making real money from this. They mentioned 3 different podcast networks bidding on their show based specifically on this episode. Sarah kept talking about how they want real drama and nothing performs like real betrayal. And I'm just standing there realizing my friends have been planning to publicly humiliate me for weeks. Standing there listening to them plan my public humiliation, I just lost it. All those years of withdrawing and avoiding confrontation, maybe that was the wrong approach. Maybe sometimes the people who hurt you need to face actual consequences. I don't remember walking back to my car, but suddenly I was sitting there shaking and staring at this stupid rent check, like I was literally about to pay the rent of someone who's been setting me up for public humiliation. Instead of confronting them, because honestly, what would I even say? I went home and did what I do best, marketing research. I've been in digital marketing for 8 years. I helped them build their entire social media strategy, and I know exactly how podcast money stuff works because I literally taught them about it. I spent Thursday afternoon and all of Friday researching and making calls. I started with the venue. I called them pretending to represent the surprise guest they were advertising and explained that I never agreed to participate in any live recording. I sent them proof that the confirmed surprise guest was actually completely unaware of the event. Turns out, venues hate legal problems, and the idea of someone being ambushed without consent made them very nervous. Then I contacted the ticket platform. I found their rules about false advertising and explained that tickets were being sold based on a surprise guest confrontation, but the guest had never agreed to participate and wasn't even aware of the event until now. I included screenshots from their promotional materials using my name without permission. The networks were trickier, but I know people in this industry. I reached out to contacts at 2 of the 3 networks they mentioned with a professional email explaining the potential legal and PR risks of picking up a show that was using people's personal information without consent to create drama. I attached proof showing they'd been planning to publicly ambush someone who trusted them with private information. I didn't mention it was me personally. I framed everything as professional industry concerns about ethics and legal issues. By Friday evening, the venue had emailed them about reviewing the event for potential legal problems, and over the weekend, everything started falling apart. The ticket platform suspended sales Monday morning, and by Tuesday, the networks had pulled their offers. While they were dealing with that chaos, I was packing. See, I've done this before. After my parents' messy divorce when I was 15, I learned that sometimes you can't fix broken trust by talking about it. Sometimes you just have to leave. I did the same thing when my ex-boyfriend started getting controlling 3 years ago. I didn't argue or explain. I just quietly moved to a different city. I've always talked about wanting to live somewhere new. I'd never seriously looked into it because I didn't want to abandon my friends. But suddenly, that wasn't a concern anymore. I used the inheritance money I was going to give to Sarah for the security deposit and first month's rent on a place in Portland. I scheduled the movers for Saturday morning and changed my phone number Friday night. I blocked all of them on social media. By Sunday night, I was in my new apartment 400 miles away, watching my friend Emma's Instagram stories. She's not close with my old friends. And seeing panicked posts from Sarah, Jessica, and Amy asking if anyone had heard from me. Sarah posted something about a family emergency that forced them to cancel their live show, which honestly made me laugh because what family emergency requires canceling something weeks in advance? Monday, I saw through mutual friends' social media that they were still trying to reach me. Jessica posted some vague thing about misunderstandings and friends who abandon you during hard times. Amy kept commenting on my old photos asking me to call her. But here's the thing. I don't feel guilty anymore. I've always been the person who helps first and asks questions later, who gives people the benefit of the doubt even when they don't deserve it. I was literally walking to their door with rent money while they were planning to publicly humiliate me for profit. I keep thinking about how they must have been laughing about it in private, how they probably thought I was so naive and trusting that they could manipulate me right up until the moment they revealed everything on stage, how they were going to make money off my miscarriage story and off betraying my trust in front of 200 strangers. The worst part is Amy. She designed graphics with my real name and photo even though she didn't feel good about it. Like if you don't feel good about something, maybe don't do it. But it was easier to betray me than to stand up to Sarah and Jessica. I'm not the same person I was 2 weeks ago. I used to think that being helpful and loyal and supportive was how you kept people in your life. But maybe some people aren't worth keeping. I started a new job today. Remote work is amazing, and I'm thinking about getting a cat. I haven't decided if I'll ever talk to them again. Part of me is curious what they're telling people about why I disappeared, but mostly I just feel lighter. Like I didn't realize how much energy I was spending on people who were actively planning to hurt me. I know some of you will probably think I overreacted or that I should have given them a chance to explain, but honestly, I've spent enough of my life giving people chances to explain why they hurt me. Sometimes actions are explanation enough.